Lines this hour. It's time now, though, for Media Watch. James Creedon is here with us in the studio. Hello there, James.
Good evening.
And you've been taking a close look at the election in Algeria as well. Now, the opposition leader, Ali Benflis, is warning about electoral fraud. We just learned from our correspondent that there will be no EU observers monitoring this election because the Algerians didn't get the paperwork in on time. So
Right.
it doesn't bode well, does it?
No, it doesn't. It does look like the fraud is certainly going to happen tomorrow in the the presidential election in Algeria. And indeed, Ali Benflis, one of the main contenders, speaking to Le Monde, said that the fraud has already started. Now, the example that he was giving is a document that you have to give to the Constitutional Court in order to run for the presidential election. You need 60,000 signatures from the public. He duly submitted his. And Abdelaziz Bouteflika, running for fourth term, submitted his document with 4 million signatures, which were collected in just 2 days. Extraordinary. So they are the sort of examples of fraud that is already being committed. Now, this is an interesting article that picked up by the Courrier International, which is a French magazine that takes press articles from abroad, translates them to French. Algérie Focus is the newspaper they're referring to here. Now, they spoke to a senior civil servant in Algeria, and he essentially admitted in the Algerian press that he had participated throughout his career in election fraud. He said it's essentially de rigueur, it's the done thing. The military and security establishment participate in trying to support the man of the establishment, essentially.
And this is why, I mean, as I said, we've just been talking to Catherine in Algiers. She says a lot of young people, they're not even going to bother voting because they say it's a foregone conclusion. There's no point even turning up to the ballot box.
That's exactly it. Well, when you have former senior civil servants who are even named in the press, this guy's name is Bashir Frick, speaking to the public and saying, listen, electoral fraud is official. How can you have any faith in the system?
And this is being very closely watched here in France, of course, because we've got 2 million Algerian citizens, Algerians living in France.
Absolutely, it's being widely covered. Take a look at this infographic, which is done by French France Télévisions. They're looking at all of the different ways, Laura, in which election fraud can take place, and probably will take place, a lot of it in Algeria. You have lots of different options: intimidation, stuffing the ballot boxes, vote rigging, and if all else fails at the very end, you can just proclaim false results. So lots of options there.
There's so many ways.
Lots of options there for the authorities in Algiers.
Well, let's hope that it goes a bit more smooth than that.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's how it's been reported in the Algerian media, of course.
French media
that's
in
the French
media.
media. When you look at the Algerian media, I mean, are they as open and as free when they discuss this? I guess they have to be limited.
Well, it is. What's interesting about the media in Algeria is it really depends on what media you're talking about. If you're looking at television, TV news, for example, there were a number of private television channels that were opened up in the last year, and we remember last month we were covering it here on France 24. One of those channels was actually shut down by the authorities. It had only been in existence for a few months. Al Atlas Television was shut down because it was too critical of the powers that be. This is a YouTube message that was put out by Hichem Boilouche, who is the director of that channel, making a public appeal, SOS. Now, that only got 223 views, so it wasn't a very successful international appeal for help. But they did a sit-in in the newsroom, the journalists, to draw attention to it.
Are the young Algerians as kind of up to speed with social media as they are, say, in Tunisia, for example?
Perhaps not quite as much as in Tunisia, where the social media aspect was so central to the Arab Spring and to the takeoff of the Arab Spring. But certainly it is a dimension in this election.
I mean, 200 views on YouTube, I mean, that's nothing, is it?
It's nothing, but that's probably not fair, because I think on YouTube, rather on Facebook and on social media generally, young Algerians have been very active and have been very vocal and very critical of Abdelaziz Bouteflika for going for this fourth term. It's there hasn't been an effort to censor that criticism of the powers that be on social media. However, in the print press, if you take a look at some journalists, for example, Kamel Daoud, now he writes for Le Quotidien d'Oran, he's highly critical of Bouteflika, Laura, but actually quite a number of his columns are pulled from the paper and are never go to the press.
But he's still free walking around and
He's still free and walking around. What he said is, if the Quotidien d'Oran tell me that this particular week this article can't go to press, I just put it on Facebook and it circulates that way anyway. So
And
I
he's
think
closely followed there, is he?
he is closely followed there, but he hasn't been fired from the paper. The paper is trying to walk
so it's
this.
an interesting, ambiguous kind of situation.
They're
for the
trying to
Algerian
keep
media.
their advertisers happy because it's a
Right.
very small economic and political circle in Algiers. So they don't want to isolate advertisers, but they know that if they fire the guy, everything is just going to go up on Facebook anyway, and he'll still maintain his reputation there.
And a big name in the press world is Dilem. He's a cartoonist. He's known for doing cheeky pictures of the president.
That's right. Take a look at this one where he's comparing the ailing president, who's famously unwell, to the missing Malaysian Airlines jet. They're saying, oh, we've come up with a signal, but it's not the right one. Essentially comparing it to the airline giving off signals now and again. That's extremely critical. But he's published in an Algerian newspaper pretty much on a daily basis. But last month there was another cartoonist, Laura, who was taken to the courts over a cartoon that was seen as insulting to Bouteflika, so it's not all clear.
And something completely different. You've got 10 seconds to tell me about an embarrassing selfie that's gone viral. We must have this.
All right. Well, this is not in Algeria, but this is probably an Australian, we think. Now, what he was doing is he was trying to take a photo of himself in front of a speeding train. He was trying to get very close to that train.
Oh,
now, the
dear.
train driver put his foot out of the window, rather unhappy at the proximity of this gentleman, and gave him a fine kick in
Ouch.
the neck. And that was the end of that. Now, he came out of it pretty well, but I think he got pretty much what he deserved, Laura.
What is it with Australians and their pranks on train tracks? You remember the girl that jumped on the tracks as well?
Right. Well, it's
me.
not just Australians. Unfortunately, there is an obsession with selfies nowadays, and sometimes
no.
you get your comeuppance.
All right. James, thank you very much indeed. James Creedy.
Thanks, Laura.
Media Watch. Now, it's time for Focus, and as we've just been talking